Hey, what's up everyone? It's Josh coming to you live from the tree fort here. So today we're going to do a little video, kind of a off the wall video, maybe on the wall video here. And we're going to talk about flight numbers. So I've had a lot of people come in the shop and whenever you're dealing with someone who, even if you've been playing for a while, you just might not have the best understanding of what flight numbers are. We're going to see if we can try to help you out a little bit. I come from like a little bit of a math background. I went to school for business and finance and kind of, did stuff in accounting. And so I like to look at things from that, kind of math side of things. And so we got some magnets here and a big blank piece of cardboard. We're just going to wing it. So, all right. So what I kind of like to think about when we're doing flight numbers is almost like a graph, right? And so we have like a simple graph here. But what we would typically do is we would have the minus on this side and the plus on this side. It's a little bit backwards than your typical graph. Okay, and let's put on a couple of marks here, right? And so I think when we talk about speed, a lot of people, kind of already understand speed in regards to when we look at the disc, right? And it's kind of like an airplane having its flaps up or flaps down, right? When the plane is going fastest, those flaps are down, right? And that plane is more aerodynamic, which means it's going faster. And so I think if we look at, a putter and it's got a real blunt edge, as opposed to a driver, which has a really nice wing or sharp edge on it. So obviously that driver has almost more aerodynamics, right, with the flaps down, so to speak, and it's going to go faster. And then we see that correlates over to the flight numbers. And so, the PDGA will also determine that based on the rim of the width, but you might have something like for example, our Redwood, where the rim width might be equal to a 13 speed, but then the little bit of a blunt nose might bring it back down to a 12 speed, and that's where the Redwood is. So I think a lot of times with speed, we kind of have a good idea when we're talking about speed. Mid ranges are usually going to be 5s, sometimes 6s, although there's not many 6s out there. Fairways are going to be 7, 8s, 9s. And then you get into the beginner drivers right around 10. Some people call a 10 a fairway as well. So, but that's when you see 11, 12, 13, 14, you're getting into high-speed drivers, right? Now, glide, right? So, I think when we talk about the numbers, there's speed, right? There's glide. Uh-oh, might be losing a magnet there. Glide, turn. Now, a lot of times, guys, when we talk about turn, we forget that it's actually high speed turn, okay? So this is maybe, this part gets looked after or underlooked, before we hit fade. And now fade is typically going to be low speed fade, okay? Now, what's crazy is these two kind of don't often get mentioned as much when we're talking about turn and fade, because what turn is what the disc is actually doing at its highest speed. And if you think about it from an airplane perspective as well, when the airplane is even at the ground, when it's full blown, pedal to the metal, it is not going its fastest. The plane is actually going its fastest when it's up in the air, and it's not even running the power or the engines at full steam. But what it is doing is it's going faster because it's more aerodynamic, and it also has a little bit of the gravity kind of as it's coming down, and then, the engines pick it back up. So high speed is actually the high speed turn, is what the disc is doing at its fastest point of the throw. Now, you might see that when people are throwing and their form is a little bit bad, that the disc is a little wonky right when it comes out of their hand. But once it catches, then you actually might see it start to take that turn. And we see that sometimes, not necessarily the wonky side, but we'll see it with pros where they'll throw something and then it takes a little bit for the disc to get to that high speed turn, and then we see it have that late right finish rollover. And so that's when the high speed kicks in. Now, when it starts to lose speed and it hits the low speed, that's when it starts to come back and turn into its fade. So low speed fade is when it's losing all of that high speed from the turn, and what does your disc do afterwards? So a lot of times when we're throwing something where it has maybe a -2, 1 or something like that to it, you might see it take that turn And you might think it has fade because it kind of comes back, but what really, it's just low speed, and every single disc, if we're throwing right hand, backhand, has the centrifugal motion of spinning. What is that? Counterclockwise there, or no, that's clockwise. And so that's why it turns to the left. And obviously forehand, it does spin counterclockwise, and so that's why it kind of fades to the right on a right-handed throw. So low speed, again, is when it loses speed. What's it doing at that moment? And so if you have something beefy like a Baobab, it's just going to start dumping right out of the bag. So there's not much turn to it. And we were one of the first people ever, I think, to have a zero glide with a positive turn. So let's use this graph here. And so we'll say this is our speed kind of going up here. This minus is our turn side. And then this side is our fade side, okay? And you might ask, hey Josh, where's the glide? Okay, well, glide, I think, is probably one of the most open to discussion debates out there. You know, it's really, really hard to test out the glide of a disc. What we're really doing is that we're comparing it to other discs that we've thrown that had this glide or this glide. And oh yeah, so it must be in between those two. So I think glide is definitely a little bit based on experience. Now from, you know, the more you throw, the more you'll kind of understand that glide. Now on a tailwind shot, you can actually sometimes see that disc where almost as it's spinning and the wind gets underneath the disc and kind of lifts it, and it does those little air bounces that we call it. And so I think those are really, really important because that's us starting to learn and understand that glide. Now, if a disc has higher glide, it's going to catch and ride those air bounces. If a disc had lower glide, like our Baobab, for example, we're going to start to just see it dump, you know, just turn and burn, basically. Most likely fade. Strong. But hopefully you get my point there with the glide. So glide is a little bit more debated, and usually, I mean, this is a strong kind of rule here. It's a generality, it's not an absolute, is that usually a disc that has a little bit more dome or curvature on the flight plate is going to usually inherently have more glide as it's being thrown, especially in a tailwind situation. You know, the more dome you have in a headwind situation, that can react adversely. So what we're trying to do is focus on the glide part. And so typically on a domier disc, you might have more air get underneath while the disc is spinning, and therefore catch you a little bit more glide. So again, you know, we have our, I think, disc go up to maybe a 6 glide, and you know, we have something like the Baobab that has a 0 glide. And so there's a little bit of a good window there in terms of most drivers are probably going to be a 4, 5, or 6 glide. You know, fairways, same, probably 4, 5, or 6 on the glide. Mid ranges, you might see 2, 3, 4, 5 glides. I don't know if I've seen too many mid ranges with a 6 glide, but I'm sure they're out there. Someone's going to comment. And then, you know, putters, same kind of thing. Usually, being that a putter is so blunt nose and, you know, slow speed, as it's our putter, you know, typically they don't have a whole lot of glide. But then you have, you know, catch style discs, you know, like our Dogwood coming out, and that definitely has a lot of glide but a low speed. So you know, there's always exceptions to the rules, guys. This is, again, a generality of what we're talking about. So like I said, glide is a little bit more debated, so we're not going to necessarily focus on glide when it comes to this graph. Again, glide, we're going to just cross it out. Glide can really be tied back to you know, air shots. You know, obviously I'm talking about wind coming at you or going away from you, tailwind, and then also the dome or curvature of the disc. Those are going to be your biggest kind of you know, variance when it comes to that glide or things that could alter that. But realistically, I would just trust that your glide on your disc is probably fairly accurate to what the manufacturers say. Okay, so now when we get to turn, let's use something here, a very common one. Let's go like 5, you know, 5, what, I don't know, a -2 and 3. How about we do that just to show the purpose of this graph, right? And so if we have our speed, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this line is our 5th line, and we have -2. So if you were to throw this disc, you would have your disc curve out to the -2, and then by the time it gets to that 5 speed, we're going to see it come back 3 spots. So 1, 2, 3. And so it's going to land on this 1 position, right? 1, 2, 3, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. So we had a minus 2 plus a 3 is a 1. And so that's why we're ending up on the 1. So we had to kind of switch or mirror, so to speak, our graph here. And let's go ahead and use another one. Let's say we had a mid-range and it was 5502. Well, we're not going to see anything on the turn, right? We're just going to see that throw go up and land out on the 2. It might more curve like that, right? And so it would land on that 2 line at the 5 speed. And so that's where I started to kind of make sense to some folks that would come into our shop, and, be honest. And I always love people being honest. I try to be as honest and direct and approachable and relatable as well. So I would show them this graph, and sometimes when people see a visual representation, a lot of people understand math in a basic graph kind of format. And so, this kind of makes sense to folks. And so it's not meant to be disrespectful or anything like that, but, even I sometimes will be like, where's that going to land on my graph? Oh, okay, it's going to be over here. So if we did take, for example, the Baobab, which, it's 4013, the Alpine's actually 4014. And so, you almost see it, and it would basically be, this is the 4-speed. You'd see a 1, it's like at an angle, and then we have the 4 glide out here. It would just be like that. That's the Baobab for you. It's just a crazy beefcake. Now, we're working on something which is going to be like the money tree, for example. I don't know if I can get all the way up to the speed. So we're thinking either a 9 or 10, and then glide might be a 5 or a 6, and then we have maybe a minus 3, 1 or a minus 3, 2, kind of on the fence there. But imagine if you had that, you'd have something, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is our 9 speed right there. You'd have something minus 3 coming out all the way this way. And if it only came back 1, it's actually going to land right on that minus 2 column. If it maybe came back 2, we'd have it land right on that minus 1 column and have a little bit more fade back. So, hopefully, guys, this graph, again, this is really crude. You guys know I like to wing it. I was dealing with chickens and all sorts of stuff this morning, and we were dealing with a Uline order. I got spider webs all over me. Haven't shaved, but, we like to wing it and just kind of go for it. So, we just got a pallet, and you can see I just used this cardboard. I didn't even use the back yet. So, first try for everything. It's funny because we had someone on Instagram say that I did the roller on my 1000th try. I was like, what? I mean, clearly go watch our Instagram videos. You've seen me throw some rollers, but I could probably do that one in my sleep maybe. I definitely love me a bab roll. So, all right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that and learned a little bit. Or maybe if you already knew that, it just made a little bit more sense visually having that representation. So hopefully that helps. And, any comments, please don't hesitate. Or if you want to reach out, give me a call or a text, 408-520-0250, or you can shoot me an email, info@agldisc.com, and that goes right to my phone. That's recording right now. All right, much love. Later, guys.